I have recently been advised by an expert to be informative and not funny. For this reason, as a precautionary measure, every attempt has been made to avoid anything that may cause the viewer to laugh, giggle, groan, huff, or especially guffaw. For the safety and convenience of the viewer, however, I must issue the following discretionary warning. In the highly unlikely event a joke has been performed, a bag of hot air will likely be deployed in the comments section. Should you find yourself in an emergency situation where something I've said or done has been unexpectedly funny, please try to remain calm, informed, and assume the appropriate position. Thank you, and now the video. What I'm about to say to you is likely a controversial and perhaps to some sacrilegious or heretical view. I only ask that you give me enough time to explain my position on the matter, and you may find yourself searching for a pocket protector on Amazon, or Googling what one is depending on your demographic group. I believe the smartwatch peaked between 1980 and 1984. I know you might be thinking, but there was no smartwatch in 1980, but you'd be vaguely arguably wrong. Let's look at what we've got now. This is an Apple Watch. I know absolutely nothing about it, and I failed to be inspired or motivated in any way to do even the slightest bit of research on it. This is a Galaxy Gear S something or other, who cares, it's dead. I'll talk about that in a little while. You might own one of these devices, or maybe some other thing I don't know anything about. But here's the thing. You've trained yourself to use it unnecessarily and believe it's more convenient, and someone got at least a couple $100s off of you for it. We all do the same sorts of things, and we all have smartphones, but most of us don't bother with a smartwatch, or if we have one, it's because we got excited about it and then unconsciously discovered something. Even the coolest features get used less than 1% of the time you need to do the given task anyway. We don't think about it much, but we do simply use those features less and less until it becomes an overly expensive, understyled blob that tells us the time. Now back to this Galaxy Watch for a moment. This was my watch, and I wore it for 3 years until the battery died, which again, I'll talk about a bit later. The first few weeks that I had it, I played with various apps, then on and off for a few days, and on and off for a month for a while, trying to find something more valuable than just the time and perhaps weather. This watch was several $100s new, and it only gave me one marginally convenient feature: music control, calling from the watch, even the bio monitors. None of it gave me the value or convenience that I could get for $50 in 1980, about $190 today. In 1980, there was no tiny computer in your pocket, as I'm sure you're aware, and the computers on desks weren't particularly impressive compared to the tiny computer that's in your pocket now. So what would have been more than marginally useful to have on your wrist other than the time? Well, how about a calculator? This is the Casio C80 calculator watch, which you could purchase for $50 in 1980. It's not going to tell you the weather or allow you to remotely dial a friend, but you couldn't do those things from most computers at that time, and if you could, you spent enough on it to buy a car. However, if that's not enough for you, what's the next thing you think might be useful in a world of landlines and physical books? Well, how about a place to store all those numbers you have to know in order to talk to all those friends you obviously have? In 1984, Casio gave you that ability in the form of the CD40 calculator and database watch. But wait, there's more. In 1987, Casio would give you the hackers-like ability to press a button on your wristwatch and dial a phone number, a full 8 years before the movie taught you it was once possible to do that. Introducing the DBA-80 auto dialer. While it doesn't have the calculator feature, it was one of the coolest ways to dial a friend in the late 80s, early 90s. At least to some of us it was. As a side story, I had one of these for many, many years. In high school, the strap broke, so I carried it in my pocket, and every time I sat down, it would try to dial my friends due to the rather unfortunate button placement. It may not be readily apparent, but I have, in times past, struggled to be fashion-forward, trend-setting, or even trend-aware. I realize this news is sudden and jarring, but it is unfortunately true. These watches brought more regularly useful, not readily available functionality to daily life than the watches of today do, in the context of their times and environments. Oh, and I almost forgot. The battery life on these watches was a minimum of 7 to 10 years, so they've beat every smartwatch I've seen. So what's my daily driver now that my Galaxy has finally taken its last rarely useful measurement of my heart rate? This, the Casio A158. It's based on the 1991 F91W1, which was based on another model from the late 70s. This watch does what I really need a wristwatch to do, give me the time at a glance. I did like the weather and sunset and sunrise times on the Galaxy, but honestly, I can look at those once during the day and know them all day. Besides, it certainly wasn't worth the price difference. Casio re-released these as well as the calculator and database watches in a vintage line. I wouldn't be surprised if the same or nearly the same machines and tooling were used to make the new ones. You can get nearly every version of these classic models. The one they haven't resurrected, however, is the one some generations alive today would not know why it existed, the DBA-80. I would absolutely love to get my hands on a working DBA-80. However, I don't love it enough to spend the $150 and up on eBay to get one, though it is ironically close to the value of the original watch price in today's money. The new vintage re-releases are all between $20 and $40, depending on features, of course. So I hope I've, with no humor whatsoever, informed you, entertained you, and possibly convinced you to consider something time-tested to test time. If you enjoyed the video, I invite you to slide the lump of plastic loosely designed for your hand to rest on that manipulates the pointy bit on your screen and use it to tell YouTube I'm neat in the usual way, with a thumb. Thanks for listening to me ramble, and I do hope you'll join me for future videos as I continue exploring smarter circuits.